Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're joining us. In my role as a professor, I often get the honorable opportunity of mentoring close to about 100 to 200 students per semester. And very often, I have these students asking me about pathways beyond their academic lives. What credentials should I take? What path should I take in terms of examinations? What certifications should I take? When should I take them? The question really isn't about what should you be taking or when should you be taking it. The question really is about understanding your own particular journey and timing yourself in a way that aligns yourself with industry. Nobody ever drowned in their own sweat. So put in the hard work, create your own learning journey, and remember that there is no one size fits all. Surround yourself with the right mentors, surround yourself with personalities that you want to aspire to be like. And my guest today is a perfect ambassador of exactly that. Besides just asking me, what should I take? When should I take it? Great. But surround yourself around the right people and build your journey in accordance to that. I've said this many times. There's no end points in your journey of learning, there are only different milestones and markers. And my guest today has achieved one particular milestone, one of many to come, that I'm proud to be celebrating with him today. They say never underestimate the strength of a student who's perhaps cash poor but time rich. Here's one example of somebody who's used his time and invested it very, very well. Welcome. My name is Ali Hirji, and as you know, I am the lead at both the AI Hub and the Center for Cybersecurity at Durham College. And coming to you live today from Oshawa, I'm proud and honored to welcome a young man who is related to somebody who is in need of no introduction when it comes to cyber exchange. And if you would remember at the CISO forum, there was a lady who won the award of Women Lifetime Achievement, Aleksa Zatezalo. And I'm proud to welcome her son, Aleksa Zatezalo, who is, by all accounts, one of the youngest certified ethical hackers in Ontario. Aleksa, welcome to the Power Hour.
Thank you so much, Ali. I couldn't have said it better myself. I'm very happy to be here today.
So for you, it wasn't a matter of being introduced to the world of cybersecurity all of a sudden. You've been surrounded by a lot of
Right,
mentors around you. Your own family has a very strong
right,
background in engineering. Tell us a little bit about your schooling. Where did you go to high school? Where did you
right,
begin? What got you to UFT? Tell us a little bit, Aleksa.
right. So I come from a family of telecom engineers. They came to Canada in the early 90s when the country was in need of quite a large amount of electrical engineers that helped build their mobile network. And growing up in this environment, I always knew I'd pick some kind of career in computers. That was the most natural thing for me. And I always had a very strong interest and a very strong inclination toward math from my early years. And I was fortunate enough to go to the York School by Young and St. Clair in Toronto
Yep.
that offered a very strong, not only an IB program, but an advanced place math program, which allowed me to finish what was effectively a curriculum in math that covered all the way up to the first year in university by the 11th grade. So I always knew that that was something that would have been of great personal interest to me. But it also left me with a spare period through some of the 11th grade and most of the 12th grade. And because we were in a computer-based school where students were expected to bring their own laptop, the most natural thing to me was to start learning programming in this spare period.
Yep.
And it was actually at this point that I registered for an online course by UFT through Coursera with Professor Paul Grice, where we'd learn Python programming, and the culminating project was that we'd create our own version of Space Invaders.
Interesting.
And yeah, it was very fun. And because I was part of the computer gamers clique at my high school, creating some kind of video game myself was of great personal interest.
it should have been, it probably was like almost like a badge of honor that now from
Right,
playing games, you've now gone and developed something of your own. There's so much to unpack here,
right,
Alexa, in your
right.
journey. And I'm going to ask you to just transport yourself even deeper to those moments when you were at the York School. I mean, you mentioned a lot that, mentioned that you had spare periods, and you mentioned that during that time, the most natural thing for you was to go into coding. But we also mentioned this a lot that, play can open up the minds quite a bit. And
Oh,
it
for
seems
sure.
like gamification really, really hit you, and computerized gamification seemed to be something that attracted you. Is that a fair assumption?
It's a very fair assumption. Thank you. Part of the thing that at least initially attracted me to coding was that initially it's okay to make a mistake
Yeah,
because you can run your code and you can see where it fails.
yeah,
And that's part of the process actually of creating secure bug-free code, which I hope we'll later talk about.
absolutely. And speaking about mistakes, Alex, I've said this a lot of times. I know this is your first interaction with me
Right.
on the Power Hour, but I always say this to my students, and I ask them to put this on a shirt where I say, you know what, great great people, great coders, they learn from the mistakes, but the really intelligent ones learn from the mistake of others. And because you were part of a community, how is that sharing important? Like, were you learning from your peers? Were you sharing your code with your fellow
Right.
students and colleagues in your class?
Right.
Talk to us a little bit about the community that you surrounded yourself with.
Right. So when it came to this project that I initially did, I didn't end up sharing the code or the game with my friends, but I knew I'd pick a career within computer programming and later UFT. And it was at university where I first began to uh, form a group of friends that surrounded programming. And um, really being able to look over each other's code with a set of fresh eyes was
Absolutely.
really the key benefit in seeing what was good and what went wrong. You know, uh, sometimes, as you know, as a technical person, you get stuck in a certain pattern of thinking that might lead to an error, and bringing in an outside perspective or being that outside perspective at times can be very helpful.
Absolutely. And I think, again, but when I speak even to Olivera quite a bit, one of the things that we spoke about during both Cyber Exchange and at CISO Forum was this idea that great leaders, great technical folks don't
Right,
present themselves by hiding their mistakes. They're very open about their mistakes because you get to learn and share. And I want to work with that, Alexa, just a little bit because, when I look at the way you've engaged, when I look at, the way you responded to me when booking this Power Hour, there were a lot of soft skills as well that you demonstrated. Your
thank you.
prompt on your email replies. You're very thorough in making sure that things are put together strategically. We went through the draft for this session as well. You made sure the invites were there. You made sure you constantly referred to people by their last name and you greeted them with a salutation. How did you pick up some of these soft skills that many technical
Right,
folks at your age often don't have, Alexa?
right. Thank you. Well, in a way, it was always a paranoia of mine to be a technical developer without social skills. You know, going into UFT, especially at such a competitive program, it's very easy just to focus on academics and neglect all areas of your personal and social
Yeah,
development. And I always made sure that um, anything I was doing somehow involved other people, if even only for the sake of developing those soft skills. So uh, any assignment that I did was often done with friends,
yep. So
and
group
I
work.
often, yeah, and I in my second year of university, I made an effort to join the computer science student union,
Absolutely.
where I could not only help organize events, but give back to the community that I felt was providing me with such a beneficial education.
Alexa, you're dropping so much important wisdom here, and you're moving, as we like to, you're moving like liquid because you're going from one point to the other really, really well. And I know this is your first sort of session of this nature, and all I can tell you is that you're flowing very, very well because in just about 10 minutes, you've touched on three really important points that I want to make a little more clear for our audience. We've got quite a few people who are listening who are aspiring ethical hackers, who are students like
Right.
yourself considering their next class. Three things that you've mentioned, which I want to highlight again. Number one, community. You need to
Right.
surround yourself with people who are like-minded, but also people who may have different interests. Being
Right.
part of different communities, having those memberships, like the Computing Society at UFT. Number two, collaboration. You need to know how to work in a team. You need to know how you fit in, but you also need to know what your gaps are. You need to identify your blind spots. And number three, which I cannot or sort of underestimate, is this aspect of play and gamification.
Right.
Knowing how to have fun with the concepts that you're dealing with, developing tools, so on and so forth. I think this is such an important baseline. Now, Alexa, I want to start moving a little bit forward into your journey. You've graduated from a strong high school, you're now at UFT, and you're taking the computer science program, and suddenly you're beginning to see that you want to go into the space of information security, you want to go
Right.
into the space of cybersecurity.
Right.
And it's very difficult, and if I may add to this, to often try and change trajectories a little bit. Often, I tell myself when somebody says, no, you can't do it, it just means that no, I can't do it with you, but I can do it by myself. Seems
Right.
like you independently created a bit of a journey for yourself to marry computing sciences and cybersecurity. Tell us a
Right.
little bit about that, Alexa.
Thank you. Well, similar similar to the development of soft skills, I found that developing a certain base knowledge in cybersecurity was more a matter of working it into everything you do, uh,
Absolutely.
rather than going out of your way to actually learn that skills, because in a way that's significantly harder.
Yep.
Um, my interest in cybersecurity actually began when I covered when I discovered Kali Linux during a programming course.
Many people, it started from there.
Right, right, and that opened up almost a whole new area to me with that I could explore and pursue. Because I'm sure, as you're familiar, a coder can spend his whole life um, translating business requirements into computer instructions, but that doesn't necessarily means that he understands the underlying things that allow that code to function. And through the pursuit of hacking, I effectively saw that I was able to see what was hidden in a computer system and what actually allowed things to um, to function the way they do, and that was really interesting. And I actually started to explore this area when I learned coding at UFT, as I find that secure and conscious development of software and cybersecurity are often two sides of the same coin.
Yep.
So although I don't necessarily have access to cybersecurity or cryptography courses in undergrad, I can deeply consider what it means to do an SQL injection when I'm participating in a database course. You
Yeah.
know, um,
Absolutely.
right? And there's a lot of ways to work in a knowledge and implementation of cybersecurity through the courses you do at university. You know, many students at one point will have to develop a website or some kind of web application,
Yeah.
and as we know, that obviously has a lot of implications in terms of cybersecurity, and it's very interesting to learn something like preventing cross-origin resource sharing um, that would create for a vulnerability as you go and as you're developing a website. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And then not knowing, for example, how to secure some of your code, even some of the basic practices around how we share our code on GitHub, how we share and
Of
maintain
course.
some of our repositories. More importantly than that, when some of us, and this happens quite a bit now, is that while there are a lot of plug and play tools that are out there, which make web development, if you want to call it that, a little more easier and a lot more intuitive.
Right.
There are certain tools and certain processes you can take in order to ensure that those plugins are protected. There are certain things that you can do to protect the DNS. Something as simple as going and browsing through a property that you own on a Google Search Console can teach you so much about what's happening on your site and what you need to do that it's quite phenomenal. But you need the guts, you need the courage to look under the hood. And Alexa, I'll tell you a little bit of something which you know this very well, is that many folks who are in cybersecurity may not have necessarily gone to school for this. Somebody I look up to greatly, Danny PowerHour, never went to school for it. never went and got any credentials, but had this ability to not just try and understand what somebody is doing, but how they're doing it. And it all starts from questioning. Alexa, I want to know a little bit about your mentors and your home environment. I mean, I'm very
Right,
close to your mom.
right,
I do a lot of work with her, but you seem to be in an environment where they value and reward risk. They allow you to
right,
take certain chances. Talk to us a
right,
little bit about what the home was like to support you.
right. Well, uh, my parents were particularly successful at really encouraging me to pursue both formal and continual education,
Yep.
whether it was formal or not. And a common trope we share around the house is about um, a student in a jazz class that asked the professor, "Why do we need to learn all this music theory when we can just play?" And the teacher said, um, you don't want to dedicate your life to performing something you don't understand, you know and really the pursuit of a deeper understanding of what it is I do is something that I find drives me,
Fantastic.
and I find that seeking out mentorship and people that can that have a better understanding of the industry as a whole
Yep.
than you do can either help address your blind spots or affirm the path you're on in a way that's very beneficial and really help confirm or develop that base of understanding you're trying to develop. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
And I think again, Alexa, I'm pretty, I'm not saying this now because we have an audience from around the world, and I know you have some family members watching and Olivera herself, but I'm saying this in true intent. I deal with a lot of students. A real quality about you is that you're listening to understand and you're not listening to reply.
right,
You're listening to the questions and you're processing them almost as if in script and code and then looking at the best answer. So I really like the trope that you brought forward, looking at cybersecurity and dance and how those two come together. You've really
right,
found ways to make cybersecurity relatable. And I want to work on that relatability just a little bit because actually a question has come in around different competitions around security, so on and
right,
so forth. But we've heard some great stuff about how you started in school. You went down a particular IT
right,
path, had some free time. Now you went into the university, information security started to intrigue you, and your family has created an environment for you where you can explore some risk and you can take some risk and learn from
right,
your mistakes. So this brought you to your first industry certification, which is Certified Ethical Hacker. And besides, the misnomer in the industry is that certified ethical hackers are predominantly just very good and certified pen testers. But more than that, they're social engineers. More than that, they're coders. More than that, they are political theorists in their own right. Can you talk to us a little bit about CHV10 and what were the there's 5 core modules in CHV10. What were the modules that you went through? What was challenging? What really drew you into it? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
right. Part of what drew me toward the CEH was that it not only taught us about the 5 core modules of pen testing from footprinting to the system exploitation, but also gave us um, a big picture overview of the industry as a whole and
Absolutely.
the direction it's heading. You know, a key thing that I found that they added um, in this iteration of the CEH was not only mobile cybersecurity, but IoT security, which is going to be the security area of tomorrow.
Instead of
Um,
threats, absolutely.
right. It's I just when I was going through mobile security, I remembered how 10 years ago, when I had my first cell phone, it was a cell phone that I borrowed, a flip phone that I borrowed from my grandma for the day to walk home from school. Um, Now every single student in the 5th grade has their own smartphone,
Yep.
and not only are they devices that can call and text, but they have all of the same vulnerabilities and capabilities that a computer today may have,
Yep.
which opens up a whole new area. And I just thought that the certificate of ethical hacking um, was really good at showing us the state of the industry as it is in the direction within which it was headed,
Yep.
which I thought was great. And the second thing that I really liked from the certificate of ethical hacking was that it not only taught the art of penetration testing as a series of skills, but also as a methodology. You know, because because the environment is constantly changing with new developments in technology, it's very hard to pinpoint a core set of skills. because those skills will have to change along with the technological landscape.
Absolutely.
And there was quite a strong emphasis on not only footprinting, but correctly being able to pinpoint and filter through a large body of knowledge for one vulnerability, which is really all you need as a penetration tester.
Absolutely. And I think that piece on reconnaissance and that piece on the ability to do footprinting and practical steps to footprinting, I think really make the CEH stand out as a certification. And I really like what you mentioned about methodology. Now, Alexa, a question has come in, which I think it's pertinent to bring that up right now. And that is to do with the tools that you were allowed to use within the certified ethical hacker environment. So like and like you've been through, at least I believe you've done V10, there is a particular sandbox environment within which you can test out certain learnings.
Right.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the tools that were embedded within that state-of-the-art environment?
Right. So the certified ethical hacking V10 courseware, alongside with every presented or written module, it also offered a lab environment which you could put those tools to test. That we learned about throughout the courseware. And not only did we go through a certain set of core tools such as Nmap or Metasploit, which I'm sure every cybersecurity expert has heard of, but we also went through a few lesser known tools such as NICTO or whois.org, which really give us a deeper understanding into what it is we do. And I think having this practical hands-on experience is one of the most important things we can have throughout our own education, because as Confucius said, I hear, I forget, but I do, I remember, and I understand.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, very well said. And again, you're dropping wisdom very, very powerfully. So good on you. And I'm very sure those special people that are listening are quite proud, but more than anything, are really humbled with the way you've understood the ethos of these certifications. Let's dig a little bit deeper into the certifications. You mentioned Metasploit. You mentioned different tools that are out there. Can you talk to us a little bit about the journey of learning? Because, and I do want to get into a couple of technical scenarios as well, but because this question is also coming into the audience, you can drop your questions in the live chat, or I keep getting DMs of questions, that's fine too, whatever floats your boat. Alexa, let's go into the aspect of how long it took you to finish the actual training. Did you do the training in person? Were you doing the e-courseware? Walk us through the timeline that you went through and how quickly or how long did you generally take in order to write your examination?
Right. Well, I'm a very big fan of slow and steady learning over a long period. I'd rather do a little bit every day than a lot at once, although I'm sure some people might be the other way around.
Yeah.
But I actually took it quite slow, and I finished the course within 6 months.
Okay.
So when it came to the thank you. When it came to the actual courseware, I decided I'd do one module every 2 days. But I'd really make an effort to know and regurgitate the knowledge that was taught and really see all the use cases, both within the confines of the course and within the normal world outside of the CEH courseware. And that took me about 2 months. And preparation for the exam, where I was doing practice exams every day, took me another approximately 3 months.
Yep. Right? In order to get the content.
Yeah.
So but personally, 6 months in total, Alexa?
Approximately 6. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but 6 months, and during those 6 months, were you, besides just the course material that you had in the e-courseware, were you also accessing other communities of support? I think EC Council does have different communities where you can ask questions. Anything else that you had to support you during your learning?
Right. Well, I was using the EC Council courseware quite heavily, and they do offer quite a few links to various white papers online that are outside of the courseware, and I was making sure to go through all those. And I'm a big fan of various internet forums such as Reddit, where you can actually see the validity of someone's response or advice by the merit of its rating. So I'm a big fan of using uh, websites where there's a like dislike system that can really show you the validity of someone's advice.
Yeah, I think crowdsourcing advice is perhaps one of the best things that you can do. Let's delve a little bit deeper into the technicalities of CH, and one sort of statement that I always adhere to very closely is that the only way you're going to cross into new horizons is if you let go of looking at the shore. You need to go beyond. You need to see what's beyond that sunset or that sunrise, and you have to let go of the basic safer concepts that we have. Now, you spoke a lot about secure DevOps. And as you know, in secure DevOps, we have concepts around CI, continuous improvement, continuous
Right.
integration, so on and so forth. What were some of the tools and lessons that you learned as it applied to testing code at different stages? Did you learn something new about testing code in the dev phase? Did you learn something new about testing code in production? How did this methodology shape your understandings of testing and secure DevOps?
Right, right. Well, one of my key takeaways was that for many developers that I work with in class, cybersecurity is often an afterthought. Generally, as computer science students, we look to develop the product first and then make sure it functions perfectly second. You know,
Absolutely.
the common trope is that you develop your minimum viable product, your MVP, as soon as possible. And I find that in today's hyper-connected age, where data privacy becomes an increasingly more important issue, uh, keeping cybersecurity as one of the fundamental pillars of software development is often paramount. And the easiest thing is to have it as a core driver of the software you develop from the very beginning. You know, uh, to come back to that example of cross-origin resource sharing in a website, configuring a website to allow only certain types of cores after the fact and after you've developed it is significantly more difficult than developing the site that way from the beginning. There's a lot of changes you have to make. So when it comes to development itself, I found that the most effective way to develop a software securely is to first ask yourself, what are the security implications? And then to ask yourself, how can I develop this minimum viable product, as opposed to the other way around?
Absolutely. And I think you're absolutely strongly advocating for the point of security by design. And that
Right,
is not something that you think of as an afterthought, as an add-on to your product, but something that you're factoring into each and every piece of the development lifecycle. Now, I do want to know a little bit about how, you had mentioned about IoT.
right,
You mentioned about network intrusion. You had mentioned about denial of services,
right,
cross-scripting applications. I want to go into that just a little bit. But I do want to extend a little bit on the DevOps side of things.
right,
Now, in Certified Ethical Hacker, you learn a lot of the physical vulnerabilities. You learn a lot of the code-based vulnerabilities that can allow somebody access to a particular application, an
right.
unknown actor. How much of this also factored around knowing how identity can be spoofed? How much did you learn about the hacking of identities and the vulnerabilities in access
Right,
management protocols? Alexa?
right. Well, this was quite well covered in their session hijacking module.
Yeah.
Uh, we learned quite a bit about being able to transfer cookies from one PC to another and how that can be used to spoof a person's identity.
Yeah.
Uh, but we also learned that quite well in the social engineering module of
Absolutely.
the course, which I think is just as valuable and often overlooked um, uh, within today's within the state of the field today, especially with the advent of social media, with so many people sharing their information online. Uh, Drawing a boundary between what's public and what's private becomes increasingly more important in protecting identity.
Interesting. And I think, again, you brought up this really crucial aspect about the story and the narrative that can be formed around identity and users.
Right,
Because you live not only in one digital environment, but you live in multiple of them, There are certain drops and breadcrumbs of information that can be exploited in a certain way. Now, Alexa, we talk a lot about this aspect of, ethical hackers being individuals who help you find vulnerabilities in your code, who assist you with trying to improve the cybersecurity posture of your applications. But are you finding that the world of the ethical hacker has become even more challenging as we were talking before the session, as more automation starts kicking into cybersecurity products, as more AI is driving some of the
Right,
defenses with which some of how firewalls are maintained, how different environments are maintained in terms of
right.
protecting our networks at the edge? Are you finding now that you're having to go a little bit extra in order to show where some of these vulnerabilities lie? Or is just the hyper production of new environments and hyper virtualization opening up more and more vulnerabilities?
Right. Well, I think if I understand the answer to all the questions um, you've asked here is yes, it's true both that the amount of vulnerabilities we have are harder to detect, but
Yeah.
in a way, it's also true that there are more vulnerabilities out there. When it comes to systems we commonly know and understand, such as computers, normal computers, um, AI will be increasingly important in learning how to recognize and defend against potential threats. You know, um, uh, recently I listened to another webinar about a guy who ran a company that was able to use artificial intelligence um, to actually detect vulnerabilities or potential entries on all user endpoints of a particular system. And I think to a certain extent, this is what the company Darktrace does, which you guys had on a previous Power Hour of yours,
Yep.
which
I
was
think
very interesting.
Nabil would be very happy. Nabil was the engineer that I spoke to at the time.
Right,
And besides Darktrace, there are other, they do a phenomenal job. I highly recommend their case studies,
right, right,
especially one related to the Olympic Games and how their pattern of life software was able to detect certain anomalies. But you're absolutely right on the automation side.
right.
The one
Yeah,
example is surely Darktrace.
right. But with the expansion of technology, there's also going to be an exponentially larger amount of vulnerabilities that come with those new developments.
Yeah,
And until we can accurately create the confines within which those vulnerabilities can be found, we're still going to need human intelligence, you know.
absolutely.
Uh, and I think that's in these new developments is where the hands-on penetration tester can shine.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. And I think, there's this little statement that you've made at the end about where penetration testing can truly shine. It really isn't just about telling somebody, what, I'm going to pen test your environment. It's about really presenting curated scenarios. When you go into telling a company, hey, I'm going to pen test this application, I think you've raised such an important point when you say, first paint a scenario and you get the client to say, imagine this is how your application is being used. And I, in that transaction, whether the data is at rest, the data is in transit, or the data is live, I'm going to find a way in. I think this aspect of making security and making ethical hacking more relatable is a real
Right.
strength that you have. And hearing you talk about it, it's probably something that you're only going to get better at. And it seems like
Thank you.
everything that you've learned about in ethical hacking through the sandbox environment and through your experiences, you've been able to look at more relatable practical examples, which takes me to one question that's come in. There are actually two questions. One's from Nicholas Williams. Hey, Nicholas, thank you for joining. I'll bring his question second because he's talking more about the programmatic features around ethical hacking. But I do
Right.
want to talk about how did this knowledge that you gained and continuously gain from ethical hacking, how did it inform some of the job opportunities that you've held? I believe you've been at RBC as one example. Tell us
Right.
a little bit about how you found yourself there and how this certification held you in good standing.
Right. Well, um, to go back to our uh, question about mentorship, I always think it's very important to seek out mentorship both from within the household and without the household, because getting mentorship from outside the household um, can often give you an unbiased opinion,
Yeah.
right? And it is through my time at RBC that I met with a cybersecurity analyst for what we call a coffee chat, and I was able to. I decided on the fact through that chat that I was gonna pursue the certificate of ethical hacking, right? So it was through the connections and the mentorship I received within the company that I actually decided to pursue the certificate. And later on, I was able to speak on my experience both studying and both creating those connections, which helped me get my job as a cybersecurity analyst within BML.
Absolutely.
Right.
What was it something by chance, or did you very specifically look to get into the financial sector of cybersecurity? Because both your positions have been in the financial sector.
Right.
By chance or by design?
Um, a little bit of both. I think that.
Dramatic.
Thank you. The financial space always appealed to me. I very much clicked with that culture, and I very much understand that frame of mind.
Yep.
So I find that the financial sphere is a very natural workspace for me. But as an intern and as a student, I applied everywhere I could for potential jobs, and it just so happened that I got a job in a bank.
Okay. And I think, you mentioned something here that we can really work with, and that is you clicked with the culture, which tells me something about, you're not looking at a cybersecurity professional as someone who sits really within the confines of a cubicle and does their work within that.
Right.
You've really looked at cybersecurity as a integral part of every piece of the operation.
Right.
And that is something that, as someone who's seen a lot of people go through CEH, I think that is something that you learn a lot from that, because when you do, I think there are about 14 modules or so. When you do the module, for example, on reconnaissance, or you do the module on
Right.
social engineering or footprinting for that matter, you realize the power of knowing how to ask questions, but also knowing to understand the operational flow of different facets in the organization. So
Right.
again, really, really important points. Now, Alexa, we have about 15 to 18 minutes left, and I want to take about 5 minutes to continue the discussion on CEH, and then we're going to go into a little bit of your observations, some lighthearted perspective that you might have on
Thank
all
you.
your experiences so far. Alexa, the question that's come in, and I'll read it verbatim, is do you find that bug bounty programs or those kind of hackathons or those kind of initiatives really help with growing a cybersecurity professional?
Right. Well, it's funny you ask because I've just recently signed up for HackerOne's bug bounty program, and although I have yet to find the bug, I am a firm believer that practical experience is what makes your skill valid.
Yeah.
If you can't apply it to the real world, it's almost like you don't have it, at least in my opinion. So as it stands, I think it's very important to find an outlet within which you can practice the skills you're learning. But I also don't think that bug bounties are the only place you can practice your skills as a pen tester. Currently, I am applying for jobs as an offensive security expert, and I hope to find placement in that field. But I could also practice through hackthebox.com, which gives us various VMs that we can practice in a hands-on fashion.
This is again all very practical tools that you've got in there. And what I will request you, Alexa, is after this session, just spend about 5 minutes on Cyber Exchange and just drop, in the main wall, just drop some of these resources there as well.
Thank you.
Because I think what you pointed to over here is that not only are these good resources, but you've used many of them. So if Nick, for example, wants to connect with you, it's a matter of just sending a quick message and then getting on a call with you, and again, building that community. And I think, as you know, that the cyber exchange community, the beta community that's now growing into the space for cybersecurity experts of all shapes and sizes. I think it's also important to now look at what could we do from the cyber exchange community to bring another set of different kind of gaming and learning environments, different set of playboxes and sandboxes for us to do testing and simulation in. So again, Alexa, thank you for this, and it's an opportunity for you to lead folks who want to aspire to be similar like you. Another question that has come in, which I'll word slightly differently, but I'll word it in a way where I hope it can stay true to the kind of ethos behind this question. And that has to do with when you chose certified ethical hacker, there were other certifications as well.
Right.
Did it matter to you that certified ethical hacker came from EC Council and others come from ISACA? Did the credentialing body ever factor into your decision?
Right. It did quite a bit. The first thing that drew me to certified ethical hacker as a certification was the fact that not only learned penetration testing, but I got a big picture overview of the industry as a whole. You know, we learned about things like social engineering or IoT devices, and even now cloud security. But what I liked about EC Council in specific is that not only it offered many certifications, but it offered a clear educational pathway for someone like me who's starting. And as someone who's just hoping to penetrate the field, doing it all on your own can be quite intimidating, you know. And you know, it was very comforting to me to know that after I finished my CEH, I could pursue the CEH practical to get my CEH master in a very comfortable and familiar environment.
Yep.
And not only do they offer a CH master, but I can get a large number of very interesting certifications through EC Council, which include not only computer forensics, but you know, a few certifications from the executive suite. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we were discussing in prep to this Power Hour, your aspirations to get the CCISO certification by your name is again going down the right path, finishing your CH, getting your CH master, and then getting that CCISO certification behind you. Absolutely, you've traced your own sort of journey and you're trailblazing through in your own particular way. I want to now look a little bit on the experience and just take a little bit of a back seat and just reflect on some things that you may not have thought about but some things that perhaps right now might draw your attention. So we have about 12 minutes. This is going to be a little bit of a quick fire round, but let's enjoy the process and see where we land. Now, you know that in about a month and a half, and your mom's a part of it as well, Canadian Women in Cybersecurity, hashtag We Are Cyber, is going to be running online on Cyber Exchange. And one of the things that we talk a lot as part of We Are Cyber is diversity. And we talk a lot about the fact that we need to not just bring in diversity in the sense of we need women alone, but we also look at LGBTQ communities, ethnic communities, racial lines, so on and so forth. Can you tell me a little bit about the kind of makeup that you saw in your classroom? Was it predominantly male? Was it predominantly English speaking folks? What did you see and what do you think needs to change?
Right. Well, I think, let me preface by saying that I think diversity, both of people and diversity of thought, is of paramount importance, especially in cybersecurity. As we mentioned very early on, it's very easy for us technical people to get stuck in a train of thought and not know how to fix a piece of code that might be buggy or broken. So having a whole host of diverse perspectives is very, very important to our community. In terms of the makeup of my classroom, the UFT stats, you can find these online, say that the average computer science classroom is about 75% male. And on that, there's a 50-50 split between domestic and international students.
Right.
And although we can also, we all speak English in the classroom, which is helpful.
Yeah, and I think here's the point that you brought up very well, and that is you need to know your numbers in order to address the issue. I think you've highlighted the fact that look, diversity of not just culture, but diversity of thought, diversity of intelligence is essential. We need to have diverse perspectives at the table.
Right.
How do you go about addressing that? The first thing you need to do is know your numbers. And in the Canadian context, you hear this quite a lot, whether you go on Dragon's Den to make a pitch or whether you go in to apply for a job, knowing your numbers and knowing how they equate and where things stand, and then setting for yourself benchmarks and metrics is absolutely important. But again, the distribution that you talked about at UFT, I would say it's fairly healthy compared to some other institutions and some other environments. that I'm well aware of. However, you've also raised this important element of it is important for us now to find ambassadors. It is important for us to continue to support this ideas of mentors. And a conference like Women in Cyber, when people listen to someone like your mom, when people listen to someone like Kat Kood or Sherry Rumble, and they
Right.
aspire and they learn from those people,
Right.
it makes a significant difference. Speaking of your experiences in studying ethical hacking, in studying computer sciences, in at UFT, and now charting your way down other hacking programs, what are some of the other academic interests that you've developed? During our session, you've quoted Confucius. During our session, you've quoted popular media. Do you take in any particular shows? Do you take in any particular other academic disciplines?
Right. Well, personally, as of now, blockchain and artificial intelligence are areas which I'm very much beginning to explore.
Yeah,
And I'm going through an O'Reilly book on blockchain on my own, and another one on TensorFlow, which
yeah,
are proving to be very helpful. Um, but in terms of the media that I consume, as you mentioned, it's very important to, in a way, gamify what it is you're doing, because when you think of uh, something you do as work,
yeah,
um, it often closes your mind to what you're trying to do.
yeah.
If you think of it as an engaging challenge, in some ways you'll find that your mind is open and more engaged. And I find that there's many people who are either creating vlogs or challenges of their own online that can both prove very helpful and very entertaining and put you in the mindset of someone who is there to play just as much as they are to work. And as it stands, I'm a big fan of George Hotz, or also known as GeoHot, which I'm sure you've heard.
Not familiar with it. What about his work really appeals to you?
Um, I like that he's willing to throw himself into the field.
Yeah,
That's something that I find very admirable, and I really like the way he could break down um, a complex topic in very simple terms. Someone recently asked him, "How is it that you go about learning programming?"
yeah,
And he said, "Think of everything in terms of inputs and outputs,
yeah.
and that should really boil down the field um, for you." And I feel that that ability to explain something simply to other people who might not know much about the field will be essential working into the future.
Breaking down complex concepts into simple ones doesn't reduce the complexity. It
No,
just
of
makes
course
it
not.
easier for us to address the complexity. And I wholeheartedly agree with you and understand exactly where you're coming from. Let's take that a little bit further. Now, besides the academic interest that you have in blockchain, and you've mentioned a lot of AI technologies such as
Right,
TensorFlow, and your background in Python programming, there must
right,
also be some other things that you do to ensure that as a cybersecurity professional, you're not staying rooted within one particular area of thought. I know it's COVID time,
right,
so perhaps very difficult to get out as much, but
right.
how important and I asked this question knowing a little bit about your background, how important has it been to have international relations, to have relatives in other countries? How important has travel been to your life
Right.
in terms of opening up your perspective?
Right. Well, as someone who's very well traveled, um, you, I begin to understand the importance of not being married to one viewpoint
Yeah,
or one particular outlook. And it is often sticking to one outlook when it no longer applies that causes people a lot of struggle. And as we said in the beginning, I think continual education and continually updating your viewpoint is of utmost importance. Um, and uh, as it stands, the way that I'm going to continually educate myself is to continue to pursue more certifications. As it stands, I really just want to get as much hands-on experience as I can within the field of cybersecurity.
yeah. And I think this is key again, right? Is that travel allows you to not just look at diverse perspectives, but also see, for example, because again of the high level of intellectual acumen in your family, you've also got to see how engineers in Eastern Europe, for example,
Right,
have
right,
approached their trade. You've got to
right,
see, for example, how cybersecurity thinkers in the Far East have approached the scenario. And I think it's so, and perhaps you can even shed light on this, is when you hear professionals also speaking in other languages. For me, for example, when I hear AI folks speaking not just in English, but in Urdu, or I hear them speaking Kiswahili or something like that, languages that I'm
Right.
also familiar with,
Right.
it gives you a little bit of a different perspective. And I don't
It
quite
does.
know what it is, but there's certainly
Right.
some psychological rationale behind how different languages give you a
Right.
different lens. Now, Alexa, we've got another 3 minutes, and I want to put you in a bit of a corner to see how you come through this. And this question, which has come to me directly, is around branding of cybersecurity professionals. Now,
Right.
a little bit of perspective, right? When I brand myself, I'm typically known to the Power Hour. I'm known to sort of provide a very interesting introduction, and then from that introduction, take you on a bit of a journey. And my brand has become synonymous with a bit of a laid back, a bit of approach, but a critical lens, and someone who enjoys, the world of literature and infusing it in technical talks. That's my brand. That's how I'm perceived in the marketplace.
Right.
For you, you seem to enjoy your technology. You've got your
Right.
funky headphones, you've got a particular style and flag that you carry yourself with.
Thank you.
How important is that brand and that image of how people see you been to
Right.
developing your career?
Right. Well, I do think your reputation is important for
Yeah,
sure. Right. It's to me personally, it's very important that I'm reliable and dependable, and that people know me for that, and that I'll always look to get the job done.
yeah,
I think that's a core skill and part of your image, regardless of what you choose your brand to be.
yeah.
But for me personally, how I choose, for me personally, my brand um, uh, should be synonymous with what it is I choose to do,
Yeah.
right? And although I'm looking to learn get my hands on as many things within the realm of cybersecurity as I can, I can't necessarily say what I look to make my brand, as I'm not 100% certain as to what it is I'll choose to do uh, when I immerse myself in the field. I have an idea of the general direction, but as it stands, I'm still a student.
Absolutely. And you know what? I think you're going to find very quickly that even 5 years from now, you're going to tell me I'm still a student. And 10 years
Right,
from now, you're still a student, because that learning journey continues.
right,
And you're constantly a work in progress, not a finished product. So, Alexa, again, I think you've understood branding quite well. And as you go along and as you sit in different positions and you move up the ranks, you'll realize very quickly that this is your first sort of speaking engagement. As you start to get into other conferences and as you start speaking in different workshops, you'll slowly begin to develop your voice. You'll slowly begin to develop what Virginia Woolf calls a room of your own. And that
right.
is so important, because when there's so much talent that's out there, the only way you stand out is that signature voice that you have, that signature
Thank you.
personality that you have. And it's really coming out in the way that you speak. We have about 2 or 3 more minutes, and I want to breeze through a couple of very quick questions, and then we'll call it a day on what has
Thank you.
been truly a fascinating and engaging power hour for me, and I'm sure for our audience as well. Alexa, what's
Likewise.
one
Thank you.
Alexa, what's one book that you've read that resonates with you a great deal? And it cannot be the CEH courseware.
Right. One book that I've read that really resonates with me, probably The Catcher in the Rye. Um,
Ah,
yeah. Um, that's a book that really told me that it's okay to be confused,
yeah,
and sometimes that's a necessary part of your journey.
absolutely. And I think that uncertainty being a little beautiful, you need to know how to embrace that uncertainty. And it's fine to simply say, I do not know. That in itself is a form of knowing that I don't know something. In the world of cybersecurity, there are, besides your mom and besides some of the
Right.
people that you've probably met, you've mentioned a
Right.
couple of them in your university life, in your high school life. Have there been any personalities that have really appealed to you? Many folks will say, oh, you know what, Steve Jobs really appealed to me, or someone will
Right.
say, so and so,
Right.
appealed to me. Anybody that really stood out for you?
An early role model in that played a role in me choosing the field of cybersecurity was actually Kevin Mitnick. Um, and I'm very attracted to, to the idea of learning from one of the pioneers of the field.
Yeah,
And um, I really like the idea of creating some kind of knowledge in areas that people don't see or haven't necessarily formalized yet. And that's something I hope to do into the future.
Yeah, and I think contributing to the corpus of knowledge that's there is
Yes,
essential. So by the sounds of it, you are probably considering your masters and perhaps eventually even more than that as you continue to
right.
add and you continue to do research in this space. Are you at this point doing any research? Have you created any virtual environments for yourself or you're trying to explore new ideas and concepts?
Um, in terms of virtual environments, no. But I am experimenting with hands-on penetration testing using VMs and boxes that are known to have vulnerabilities. A particular tool that we were introduced to in um, CEH was WebGoat, which is run by OWASP and is known to have uh, a large amount of vulnerabilities.
Well, at the end of the day, you don't necessarily have to build your own environments. You know what's out there, and you use those
Right,
tools, and you continue to build your knowledge from there.
right,
So, Alexa, the last question for you, and then we'll call it a day on this fascinating Power Hour. The question is more related to what's in store for you for the next few months, besides college and
right,
besides university, and now applying to different jobs. Are there any benchmark events that you're looking forward to besides Canadian Women in Cybersecurity? Are there any
right,
other events that you're looking forward to, or
right.
any other competitions that you cannot wait to get started with?
Um, well, what I'm looking forward to right now is the DEF CON Security Conference
Yeah,
in Las Vegas. And hopefully COVID clears up by then and I'll be able to go in person.
to go out. Yeah,
And that's something that I've been looking forward to since I was maybe 17.
yeah.
So I'm very excited to uh, finally have a time to go and experience the conference for myself.
Absolutely. And I think this is the core of understanding conferences, whether you go to DEF CON, whether you go to Canadian Women in Cybersecurity, there's something that draws you there. And whether it's just looking at new technology or hearing in person or being close and having access to these individuals who are pioneers in the field really help shape a person's career. I don't think people quite realize how powerful this is. Just like if you play sports, being close to your favorite sports person makes a day for you, makes a
Right,
sense of belonging for you, gives you a sense of identity. The same really
right,
applies in the world of cybersecurity and any profession that you're in. So find a mentor, find a leader that you want to aspire to be like, and be better, be bolder, be better, be more creative. Alexa, before I wish you goodbye, I'm going to ask you and we thank our audience to stay on so we can have a quick debrief in the green room. But I am going to tell you that you have by far been one of the most impressive students that I've engaged with, not from the perspective alone that you have a good sense of what it means to study ethical hacking. You've got a
thank
very
you.
good sense of the cybersecurity practitioner not being an isolated practitioner, but being an interconnected, integrated practitioner
Right,
within a company and within an organization. And at such a young age, what is it, 21, 22?
22, yeah,
22, you found meaning in this and you found reason in this and you
thank you.
jumped on the opportunity to engage in one of your first sessions because this is the only way you're going to learn. So Alexa, I'm going to thank you for your time. I'm going to ask you to stay on, and to our audience I'm going to tell them really quickly that this session with Alexa came up about a month ago. We
Right,
just touched base on email for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, had a quick call for 2 minutes, and boom, this session happened. If you're a student and you're doing some creative things in cybersecurity, or you just want to come on the Power Hour with a bunch of your friends to talk about your experiences of studying cybersecurity, send me a DM on cyberexchange.ca or reach out to Maddie Raza on cyberexchange.ca. I always say this to my students that a year from now, you'll thank yourself for the actions you took today. I think
right,
6 months ago, the action that, or 9 months ago, whatever it was, the action that Alexa took, he's thanking himself for doing that because it's placed him in a completely different light. And remember, I said this at the start that intelligence will always beat strength.
right,
Think about where you excel. Think about where you've got certain skill sets, where you've got the ability to think through things differently. And just because somebody says, no, you can't do it, doesn't mean you can't. It simply means that you can't do it with them, but you can do it by yourself. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you at the next Power Hours One of the most fascinating Power Hours is about to come your way in February, and that is a Power Hour sponsored by VMware Carbon Black with none other than Eric O'Neill. I'm sure all of you know who Eric O'Neill is, and you're seeing the little ad that's playing on your screens right now as well. Before that, there will be other Power Hours as well with IBM and a whole bunch of other powerhouse and power hitters in the world of cybersecurity. I thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed your lunch hour with me. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you at the next Power Hour. Take care.